I'm gonna try and explain to you non-metallic technique without any blending. Sounds interesting? I don't know, maybe? So non-metallic metal is an ancient technique which has been popularized only recently in the miniatures worlds. In the community, I have to admit, it is pretty much filled with good content about this topic. Either on YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, you'll find whatever kind of approach to non-metallic metal. What I think is lacking though in this community is the conception that you can actually achieve a good non-metallic metal effects without having to do any fancy blending whatsoever. It's like there's a big misconception about that. You must have smooth blends in order to give a realistic effect. That's not true. I mean, if you look at one of the best Kill Kanev, it is not very clean, it's not very smooth. And in a smaller scale, I think you can get away actually without having that smoothness that takes you ages and ages to build. And it implies you have some skills like glazing, brushwork, tedious techniques to learn, which can be really overwhelming for someone who's just starting out. And I really understand the need for a beginner to try such an advanced technique. So I thought I'd try to at least try to make it easy for you, because when I first started, I didn't know how to paint smooth blends, or I didn't even know what a glaze was. And still, I wanted to try this technique. My formation on non-metallic metal has been done mostly with two painters, Michael Pisarsky, with whom I attended a workshop with, and Arnel Zaro. And even when I attended the class with Pisarsky, with Michael, he used really simple techniques. Layering, he used control washes. So yeah, there is no need to use fancy technique. In this video, I'm gonna use just basic techniques. But before we jump into that, I want to tell you a few things that might be useful for you to approach this topic without being overwhelmed. And of course, I'm gonna explain it my way, because as I said, the community is full and filled with this type of content. So it doesn't make sense that I make the same content all over again, because you're gonna get bored and you're not gonna subscribe. But please do, because why wouldn't you? I mean, I'm so charming. First tip I would like to give you is maybe the basic one, the most important one, is that contrast is king in non-metallic metal. You have to go from the darkest black from the lightest white into a limited space of time. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it can be done. And the first mistake that I made myself back then, that I sometimes see doing in the community on YouTube, is start with a gray base coat, which is, please don't. If you start with a light base coat, you're making your life so much harder. So don't. Just start with a black primer or with a black base coat, whatever, not any kind of gray shade. That's my advice, you can't ignore it. You want to have maximum distance from your white and your black. And in the middle there might be any kind of color. You might use like blues, grayish blues, desaturated blues, or you can have like neutral grays or more yellowish grays or browns if you want to like do some rust effect like I'm gonna be doing today. In a small scale, we are a little bit more limited, of course, even brushstroke wise, because the space is my second advice would be to follow the rule of cool. Like I said, there is plenty of content that explains how reflective surfaces might work. Maniac has a very good one. I'm not gonna explain all that. Why? Because I think you don't need to know that. I think if you're just starting out, if you're a beginner, you want to try this technique, you can still try our technique. I strongly believe in learning by doing. So it's not just about theory for me, because even if you study hard theory and how geometrical shape works, well, when you find something like this, and you have to transform into something like this, you're gonna be confused, trust me. So even if I were to give you like examples on
how the metal reflects in the light and the second reflection and the secondary in the ground or the grass.
No, because I would be repeating myself, because there's plenty of content if you wanna like go in depth into how metallic surfaces work. You can watch other videos. So I'm gonna try to give you something else. And for me, if you're starting out, taking another figure, another miniature as a reference, it's not bad at all. If you look at the best of the painters that do this, take their miniature as a reference and study it, try to understand the reflection and why they're there, you're gonna learn from that. Some painters are like,
no, you must not use another figure as a reference.
For me, no, use it. Use it to try and understand that you can do whatever it looks cool, more than what looks realistic. And following the rule of cool, start small. Start small, don't start with a Stormcast, don't start with doing a whole armor. That's gonna be overwhelming. So start small, start with a weapon on a test model or something. And the number one rule that you have to follow in non-metallic metal, and this was something that now said to me, is randomness. The reflection, the distance between them, the shape of the reflection, it's not like linear, it's not like a line, it's like, you know, today I'm gonna try to explain it, like in a weapon I'm gonna paint, we will have like two main reflections, which step by step they're gonna bleed into each other, and then you're gonna have secondary reflection. The more secondary reflection you put, much better it's gonna look. Well, no, actually, no, that's not true, because there is a thing as too much reflections. So if you want to try to do more secondary reflection, don't space them exactly at the same distance, because they're gonna look fake. You know, I know that I said I'm not trying to mimic reality. I think you make it look cool if you are more random with your reflection, with the shape of the reflection, so you don't use the same brushstroke. And now we're going number 4. What is why I lost count? Another important thing that links to the one above is the brushstroke. Oh, please avoid use the same brushstroke. Non-metallic metal has to have like movement in the brushstroke. The brushstroke has to relate to the surface. So if you're working on 30mm scale, it's not gonna be a big brushstroke, but still, don't use the same motion. And another thing that I see doing, that I did do, especially in Power Sword or something like that, parallel brushstroke. So this is the sword, and going like this. You might want to try to go like parallel, like this. You might want to move your brush as well, and that is going to help develop your brush skills as well. So it's good, right? So wait, before clicking away and getting bored, or getting bored and clicking away, I'm gonna jump into the demonstration and trying to not to lose your attention, please. And I will remember to subscribe and leave a comment, because that helps a lot. 80% of the viewers are not subscribed, so please. Shall we jump into the thing there where I paint things? Clear here. I'm not gonna talk colors because they really don't matter here. I'm gonna write the colors, the actual colors I used in the description. I started with a quite neutral gray, but quite dark, so could be like ashen gray for GW. And I start drawing the main two shapes. Here I think I did a little bit of a mistake because I should probably have linked the two main reflection and separate them later on. It ended up good anyway. So if you're a beginner, you might want to put that two reflections together in the first like maybe couple of stages and start separating them when you're up the value. And so here I'm just layering, trying to move my brush around and leaving some texture. The more you're confident with your brushstroke, the more you're gonna be able to give that really ruined metallic look if you're not shooting with smooth metallic. But I suggest you don't start with that because that implies a lot of work and a lot of skill technique-wise. So do yourself a favor and try to work on your brushstroke before you work on your technique. I'm gonna try to leave enough space, to cover enough space that I can work the other colors in. So leave enough space for that to layer without covering the layer before that, but also try to leave some black in, because like I said before, contrast is very important. You gotta leave some black there, especially in the areas that are more far away from the main reflection. We're just gonna use like a layer consistency, but a little bit more wet. We're not gonna blend here. We're so not gonna blend. In this case, with non-metallic metal, you have to be like random. Doesn't have to be a straight line. If you don't feel confident enough to do like textures, lines, and change the movement of the brushstroke, because that might be a little bit difficult at the beginning, you just try to do parallel lines going with the surface that you're painting. That of course it applies especially with weapons and flat weapons, but it also applies to other surfaces. But like I said, start small. Start with a weapon of some kind that you can control the situation, where you can actually control the situation. And the more you do it, the more you're gonna become skilled with your brushstroke, and the more you're gonna be like able to do little dots, little lines, textures, and incorporate them into something nice. Jumping from gray to gray, go close to white, in which I start separating the main reflections. some of that washes that I talked about. Here I'm using like a yellow wash that's also from MK Interactive. Like I said here, if you use that kind of products, you don't have to do this yourself, but it is enough for you to pick up a little bit of that wash and just have a small amount on your brush and like just applying that on the surface. Putting a little bit of yellow on the maximum surface really looks good. So yeah, really cool, as I said. And finally, I am taking care of the shadows, introducing some color variation. So I'm using a dark rust color to work in the shadows. Always like stippling and using dynamic brushstroke. And I'm gonna highlight that with an light rust orange. And that's it. I pretty much have them blended. I actually want to see that change from layer to layer. And from a distance, from a tabletop, you're not gonna see it. So if you want to start approaching non-metallic metal, I suggest you to try this. Just try this and see how it goes. I would like to know your experience with non-metallic metal, whether you think this is useful, what videos have you watched to like learn a little bit of the technique. I'm gonna have the whole tutorial on Patreon, so please tell me your thoughts down below. We're trying to get you involved into the process, which is also nice both for me and for you, so we can have like a conversation about painting and about how frustrating this technique is. You will find on Patreon the whole tutorial of the skin of the cape of this model from Cursed City. So consider like supporting me. You get some tutorials, you get full footage, and you get feedback. I really hope I wasn't redundant into my explaining of this technique. I really tried to script something that might be interesting for you that you haven't like seen in other places. I did my best to do that. It is a complicated topic, so. But yeah, I hope you liked this video. I hope you found some value in it. I know I'm putting a lot of effort into producing something that might be of value to you. And for next time, I've planned something really special, which is super secret. So if you want to stay up to date, then tune with the channel, subscribe and click the bell. And see you next time. Bye!